I go to my ATM and I insert my PIN, not PIN number, PIN.
Yeah, the kids today, you didn't get that joke. It's personal identification number. So you don't say PIN number. Guy, that's something that really gets up in his...
It does.
Yeah. I'm Dan Nathan, and he's Guy Adami, and this is Generation Money, the show where two Wall Street vets talk all things money with the generation juggling student loans, side hustles, and $8 lattes. Joining us today is Laura Pelligra. She became the CEO of her first company at 17 years old through a business program in high school. She's now at the Fashion Institute of Technology studying fashion business.
Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little about yourself, Laura.
I am a sophomore at the Fashion Institute. I'm currently studying fashion business management, focusing in buying, merchandising, product development, and just all things in the fashion industry.
All right, so you already did this a little bit in high school. So
yes.
What's it like in college? Have the stakes gotten a bit bigger?
Definitely a little bit. In high school, I was a part of a company through Virtual Enterprises. So it was kind of a business simulation company where now I'm dealing with real world things, which is a little bit different. I actually do have a question for both of you. I'm just wondering, what are some differences you see from the fashion industry from any other industry that you've been a part of?
Laura, in our business, there's a saying, specialty retailers where hope goes to die. And if you look at over the last decade or so, Under Armour was everybody's darling for a period of time. That's fallen off a cliff. And why? Because competition comes very quickly in today's world.
I'm currently a sales associate at Lululemon, right on Fifth Avenue, and you look out the window, you see an Alo, a Viore. Right down the block, I'm sure there's many more, but it's just really interesting to see all the competition that's kind of popped up in the last few years for us. And I definitely think it's taken a toll on the foot traffic in the store and even online as well.
Hey, you missed a couple. Athleta's there,
yeah.
On Cloud, and New Balance. It's just like a free-for-all there. And you think about competition, what Guy just mentioned, you really have to drill down on what the trends and what they're working at and what the sentiment is. That's the way we think about it in the stock market. Are people overly bearish on a certain area? I go back to that whole neighborhood. You know what used to be in there? Nike. You know where Nike's stock is? It's at like a 10-year low or something like that. They left, Viore and On went in there, and I think those are some of the things that if you keep your antennas up, those are probably great instincts, not only in your business, but also as you're investing in the stock market. This episode of Generation Money is brought to you by Moneyline, the easy place to borrow, earn, and win money. Whether you're looking for a loan offer, hoping to build credit, or just want to make money easy, Moneyline's got you covered. Learn more at moneyline.com or download the app today. All right, it's go time here. We put together a few viral posts. We're going to shuffle through them and get your reactions. Let's take a look. All right, Southern California man stole over $1.8 million through mail and identity theft scheme.
When I see a headline like that, Laura, I say to myself, if that person, if that individual used that intellect, that time to do something actually legal, like you're doing, like creating a company, think about how much better off we'd all be. I see that and say, that's just somebody that's sort of wasting the time that he has been given to him.
I agree. I definitely think the time could have been better spent with doing something legal. Yeah.
All right, let's do another one.
Okay.
All right, here's a tweet. The last person who stole my identity somehow got a home loan in my name. He was arrested at the house. It's been cleaned up, but the only reason I found out is because I tried to open a new bank account and could not. All right, speak to this a little bit. This guy was at the house. He's not the smartest, tool in the box.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I think just thinking about it, I would be kind of mad if the only reason I found out this happened to me was because I tried to open a new bank account and I couldn't. I feel like I'd want to know that this happened to me, but I also think it's wild that the person that did this was living in the house, acting like everything was completely fine.
Well, Laura, this account is called The Nerd, but it's not just nerds that get ripped off. There are a lot of professional athletes, actors, actresses, accomplished people that fall victim to the same types of fraud that normal people do. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I definitely think that's interesting because, you see these people in the spotlight, you think they have extra precautions to, not get hacked or not let their identity get stolen. But because they're in the spotlight, I think, and they have so much more money than, the average person, I think they are just a bigger target for something like this to happen to them.
LifeLock can resolve the identity theft stories you will hear here today plus more. There's a new victim of identity theft every 5 seconds, so it's not as uncommon as you might think. No matter what kind of identity theft you experience, LifeLock will fix it, guaranteed. Go to lifelock.com today and get protected. But we're going to play another game now. We call it Fraud or Fiction. This is a little different than the last one, and it's sponsored by our friends at LifeLock.
Yeah, here's how it works. We're doing 2 outrageous stories of identity theft. One of them is totally true. The other completely made up.
Your job, Laura, if you choose to accept it, is to sniff out the fake one. Ready?
I am.
All right, here's the twist, though. Just because the story isn't real doesn't mean it couldn't happen. That's the scary part.
So you're not the one in the next headline, Laura.
And we've given all these people fake names to protect their identities for obvious reasons. All right, let's go to round 1.
Jessica was ordered to appear before her state's Supreme Court, all over a parking ticket. Apparently, identity thieves had used Jessica's details in a state she had never even been to for a car she never even owned. Despite submitting proof to clear her name, the lower courts refused to dismiss her case, Laura. So that was story number 1. Dan?
All right, let's do the other one. David woke up to find all of his bank accounts frozen, flagged for suspected fraud at a luxury car dealership. A repo company knocked on his door looking for a missing Mercedes with paperwork listing him as the owner.
All right, parking ticket for a state you've never been to, for a car you've never owned, or repo man comes knocking on your door. What's fraud? What's fiction?
I think the fraud one is probably the car story.
Well, believe it or not, Laura, I was with you. I thought Repo Man had to be the real story. But as it turns out, the true story is getting a parking ticket from a state she had never been to for a car she never owned.
All right, Laura, time for round 2. Peter had over $10,000 drained from his account from someone who walked into a bank 2 hours away from his home, used a fake ID, misspelled his name on the withdrawal slip, and still got the cash. A few hours later, the same thief hit a second branch and stole more money without even presenting a debit card.
Yeah, it sounds a little crazy to me. I go to my ATM, those are those automatic teller machines, and I insert my PIN, not PIN number, PIN. And I can only get $500 out. Maybe I'm going to the wrong bank. But this cat was able to get 10 grand out without having an ID.
Yeah, the kids today, you didn't get that joke. It's personal identification number. So you don't say PIN number. Guy, that's something that really gets up in his...
It does. So does this next story does as well. Deshaun found out his identity had been used to buy into a timeshare in Las Vegas. But that wasn't even the weirdest part. The thief also used his name to apply for a marriage license. Somewhere in Nevada, Deshaun was now legally listed as someone's husband's thoughts.
I've never been to Las Vegas personally, but I would say that story would be the fake story, just because I couldn't even imagine getting married to someone I've never met.
So the fraud will be the bank story, is that correct?
Correct.
Well, you are right, so good for you, well done. As much as the Vegas thing could happen in the future, Vegas was fiction, the fraud happened with the bank.
All right, Laura, finally, round 3. Here it is. Charles was nearly fired from his trucking job for a DUI and speeding tickets he knew nothing about. Turns out an identity thief had stolen his driver's license and social security number, racked up violations across multiple states, and left him to clean up the mess.
Here's our second one. Sarah got back from vacation and discovered she'd apparently started a criminal empire. An identity thief used her stolen information to launch a fake insurance company to rip off unsuspecting drivers and vanish while Sarah got dragged into the court to answer for the whole thing.
All right, Laura, you're in the fashion business. You've already run a business. I'm assuming that at some point you want to run a new business and all the processes that it goes through. You got to get, all the sort of data ready to go. So when you hear a story like that, when that individual built an empire, okay, think about that a little bit. Is that something that you would, go way out of your way to make sure no one has access to your personal information? Because the idea of being on the hook for someone building out a business with all these different sorts of touch points as it relates to running a business, how would you feel about that?
I think the story about the business and creating the criminal empire would be the fraud. I could see that happening.
Well, Laura, it turns out you're half right because both stories were true, believe it or not.
I guess, Laura, the scary thing there is that, both stories sounded crazy. They're both true. As Guy just said, whether you're an individual or somebody who built upon your identity to build a phony business, it's pretty scary stuff.
And Laura, whether you nailed it or not, the truth is identity thieves are getting smarter. And even the made-up ones aren't that far-fetched from what's really out there in the first place.
With LifeLock, you never have to worry. No matter how wild your experience with ID theft is, criminal charges, loans opened in your name, investment accounts drained, LifeLock will fix it, guaranteed.
Bottom line, it's easier to laugh when these issues haven't happened to you already. But don't forget that identity theft happens to 1 in 3 people. So get ahead of it. Check out lifelock.com.
All right, Laura, we've covered a lot here. If you're our age, you got life insurance, you got car insurance, you got homeowners insurance. Your generation, you kind of been loosey-goosey with your privacy online and the like here. So give us your 411 a little bit. What'd you learn here today? Because there seems to be some kind of easy ways to protect your identity going forward.
Yeah, I definitely think, just looking at the social media aspect, having a private account has always been very important to me, especially on Instagram. And just going to things like two-factor authentication. And I think I might be a little different from my generation being on top of that type of stuff, but I think it's very important.
Well, we thank you for joining us, Laura. And thanks everybody for their time. Hope to see you folks again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.